Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, a dedicated parental alienation coach here to support and advocate for families navigating the challenges of high conflict divorce and custody disputes. I'm here to shed light on the struggles many families face, offering insights, strategies, and hope for those seeking justice and healing. In each episode, I'll explore real-life stories, expert advice, and practical solutions to help rebuild and strengthen the bond that holds families together. Whether you're personally affected or looking to understand more about these complex issues, you're not alone. I'm here to walk you down this path. Come join me as I navigate the complexities of family law, share inspiring journeys of resilience, and advocate for meaningful for joining. Hi, this is Charity with the Fractured Families podcast. Thanks for joining. Today, I have with me Jen Holmes, who's going to share her experience about being alienated from her children through her long-term marriage. So Jen, thank you for joining us. And why don't you go ahead and walk us through your story? And along the way, I'll ask questions.
No worries. So obviously I was married to someone for 20 years who'd been a friend since I was young as well. Over the time, he had a lot of addiction problems and up and down, a lot of mental problems as well. And we got through that. We had 2 children. He started setting up plans, which I learned I was trying to get out of the marriage. And the only way I could see towards the end was not pay the bank mortgage, which was in my name, hoping that the bank would take the house and I could just take the kids and get out. So I had 2, a girl and a boy. She was older. The girl's the oldest, and I've got a younger boy. And he set up a plan, which I've learned more and more as it's happened, to get me out. And I would pay for him and my son, who he's kept, to live in the house, because he didn't work. He'd had back injuries, which later I found out had more payouts than I knew about and things like that. So through COVID, it got really bad with lockdown because we're in Melbourne, Australia. So we were locked down for the longest. And I was living out in the caravan at the back. I wasn't inside. So more and more he was putting into place that I was crazy, that I was a drug addict, that I had another family. And I would hear things slightly, but I didn't really pay attention to him. I was working full-time, long hours. So eventually it just kept going and going. Then my daughter turned 18 and she was believing what he was saying until one night when he said, "See, your mother's not here again." And she knew I was there in the van, but I'd either sleep in the car up the road so that they knew I was there. I'd be down in the van and he would stalk that round and round and round all night, every night. The final straw for me was when I heard him go inside and tell the children that he'd just caught me having sex with someone down in the van. And lucky he didn't kill them and me. But, he didn't want to leave them without a mother. So there's a lot, which I've learnt now, is a lot of coercive control, manipulation. And he'd obviously been working on my son for a lot longer than I knew about. So, like I said, didn't pay any attention to what he'd done. So then I'd been sick. He pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed one day and finally grabbed me by my collar and I snapped and I hit him back. That was just over 3 years ago. And that's where I really got to know what had happened. My son was at his girlfriend's house. The police came and arrested me. I've never been arrested in my life. Never. He's got multiple charges going back years and years and years and years. But my son was at his girlfriend's. He'd rang and said, "I've missed the bus." And I said, "I'll pick you up." Then the police came. They took me and said they just want to talk to me. From that moment on, my son turned into his father. The things that happened, I got told I wasn't allowed to go home. My daughter, who was 18 at the time, had said to her dad, when I rang and said, "I'm not allowed to come back to my house," I had my pajamas on. I even had my pajamas on. Said, "You've taken the one thing that I needed." My son apparently was in his room with his headphones on, so he said he didn't hear anything. He proceeded to hurt her as well that night. She ran off bringing the police. They picked her up, covered in blood, and said, "Where do you want to go?" Took her to her boyfriend's house and said, "Don't do what your mother says." In hindsight now, we realise that my ex was ringing the police up to 3 times a week to say he was worried about me. I'd gone missing. I was taking drugs. I was all sorts of things. So that happened. I then, the next day, because this was very late, tried to ring my son, and that's where it started. All I got was pretty much exactly what my husband would be saying same word for word.
Mm-hmm.
And I had child protection. They rang, obviously, because there'd been violence, and they had told me I committed the worst act of family violence that there was, that my son had seen me hit him. And I just said, I don't think so. And I know my son wasn't on the step, but I said, what about, everything else? So we'd done the statements. My ex-husband now had said that he grabbed me first, and that meant nothing. So I hadn't seen my son, trying to ring. I had child protection ringing saying he doesn't want to talk to you. I said, I understand that, but can we set a meeting up? No, he doesn't want to. I understand your son more than you. I said, he's been manipulated. He's been told what to say for years and years and years and years. If you listen, it's the same story as what his father's saying.
Yeah.
As soon as I questioned her, the first time I spoke with her, I was a mess because I just never thought I wouldn't have my son with me. The second time I got it back together and I showed her that I'm not an idiot and I'm not the junkie that she'd been told I was, or that she told me I was. She then asked me if I had another family with other children. And I said, well, wouldn't you know? And that we took the rabbit. Now, the kids had rabbits. This is so petty. And we took them both. My daughter went back the next day and got them both. I was made to show her the rabbit. That was the most important thing to her. So I had to show her the rabbit because it was locked down. I had to ask her for a drug test. Came back negative. I said, will you tell my son? We don't tell them about your results. I said, can you go to my house and see how it is? I said, there'll be bongs inside. It's horrible. We can't do that. It's locked down. We can't check. I said, so it just proceeded from there. So I didn't see him. And then a couple of months later, I was driving near my house. We got put into a safe house. So I had the courts and the law and child protection telling me I was the devil, basically. Yet I had people that help women telling me I'm unsafe. So they put us into safe accommodation with cameras and everything because they were worried about him. We found out he'd had 12 IVOs put on him in the past that I didn't know about.
Oh, my
But
gosh.
that became irrelevant. You weren't allowed to bring them back up. And then so a couple of months later, 2 months later, I said, I need to go home and get some clothes. I haven't got clothes. So we arranged for the police. We had to ask his permission to go into my own house. We were in there. It was not good. My son, he took off. I mean, there's lots more I could say about the proceed to that, but we'll keep going here. He took off. I left with 6 left shoes and forgot all the right shoes. So I had lots of left ones. The police after that, I said, can we go back and get something else? No, he won't allow it. So we weren't allowed back in. It took me 2 years to get him out of my house. Then in the process, I was driving that way just to see if I could get a glimpse of my son. I was watching bus stops. I'd been ringing the school and paying all his things he needed to do still, but he wouldn't have contact. The school turned around and said, no, he doesn't want to talk to you. So I rang the counsellor at the school and tried to explain to her about the manipulation, coercive control, the alienation. No, I was wrong. She knows. She spoke to my son. He has said he's blah, 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 exactly what his father had said. There was no manipulation. I said, they have been told the same thing over and over and over again. Anyone would believe it. We've got no family left because of what he's done. He's done it with everyone. There's just my daughter and I. So I saw him. I stopped the car. I got out of the car. I went to give him a cuddle. He said, I'm ringing Dad. I said, go for your life. There's no order to say I can't talk to you. So I gave him a cuddle. He went mental. He got on the phone to his dad. And I said, your father's not allowed near me. I'm not worried. But I thought this is not going well. So off I went. And then within 2 weeks, I had the police on my door again. And they tried to charge me with kidnapping a 15-year-old boy who's 6 foot. He's a lot bigger than me. I'm only little. So I had to then, well, I didn't do it. Obviously, I didn't try and kidnap him. That took 2 weeks. And my ex got his mother to take him down to make that statement. Took him 2 weeks to work it out. In hindsight, my son had said, because I would try and ring him on private, so he would just answer. And he said, I'm not seeing you, you might kidnap me. It was a plan. It was a plan. So really, since then, I'm too scared to go near him. I go to the bus every night. He works now. He's got an apprenticeship. I go to the bus stop most nights, and just so I can see him get on the bus, know that he's all right. try and ring daily. I can't get through, leave a message. You just keep trying. And all I ever say is, I love you. He'll unblock me sometimes to give me a mouthful. He's said some horrendous things. The things that he has said, I had a brain tumor just right at the end of it, just to top it off. But that didn't worry me. I was, wish you were dead. Wish, hates all the family. He only talks to my husband's family. He's just in the last 2 weeks been talking to my dad, who lived with us, mind you, at the same time. So when we got kicked out, we all got kicked out. It was all of us. There's not much you can do. All I do is just say, I love you. I'm here if you need me. I don't ever bring up his dad or say that his dad's wrong. I don't believe that kids should be brought into any of this. What's happened, and I talk to my daughter more and more. We learn how he got it to this point, to the point where he would say, ring your mother. She's a effing, or he would just, in the next breath. Kids don't understand any of that. But there's nothing I could do. He's turned 18. No one. He turned 15 and Child Protection basically said we won't help. Yeah. So I've had to go through criminal court and get off kidnapping charges, which then got turned into consent because I hadn't asked for the cuddle. So I got off them. I had to write a letter of gratitude to the court and thank them for not charging me with kidnapping and say I wouldn't try and do it again. That was the only way I could get off it. I had to get off assault charges through his criminal court. And then when we got to family court, because he's 15, they don't care. Because over here, 15, they can do what they want, really. They've got their own say. No one. Child Protection, I rang them when he was 15, when it first happened. I rang the Ombudsman, I rang everyone saying, this is wrong. There's something here that needs to be done. Nothing. He doesn't want to see you. And that's where it went. So as far as I'm concerned, if they had have intervened and actually paid attention or know about parental alienation and coerced control and manipulation, they would have seen the narrative of both stories from my son and my husband were exactly the same. And even 3 years on, if he rings me because he's got a bee in his bonnet, he still cannot say anything other than what was 3 years ago. There's nothing he can, because he doesn't know anything different. It's just, I don't quite know, that it really needs to be taught.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you think he's reaching out to your father all of a sudden? And what is that communication like?
So they still live in the area. When I got him out, we had to sell the house. He tried to get the whole house, which he didn't get. He got most of it. Most of my funds went in to getting off my court charges. Most of my money all went into the criminal court and the family court. And he got legal aid for all of it. He didn't have to pay a cent. So my dad still lives in the area. I had to find my dad somewhere to live. He'd lived with me for 15 years. We found him a bungalow to live in, which he does still now. So he had been seeing my son around and my ex, and he keeps nice. He's actually, I wouldn't say scared, but he said 6 months after he moved out, I didn't realise how we were all living, because we were on edge all the time. Right. So he waves at my son, but 2 weeks ago he called out to him as he walked past, and he actually came over and spoke to him for a second. And then on his 18th, my son actually answered the phone, because we all try and ring, but he actually answered and spoke to my dad. And apparently he approached my brother as well in the shopping centre. My brother had to ask who he was. We don't talk a lot. Like I said, I lost all my family. Yeah. But he approached my brother, and I said, that's a really good thing. He's maybe trying to reach out, but he's still my husband's mum, who's just as bad. So he's still got that in his ear 24/7.
So prior to you leaving at 15, prior to all this, what was the relationship like with you and your son? Was it
fantastic?
A good relationship? It was great.
Really good. Well, I would take them to their sport, cricket. During lockdown, he was coming to work with me. My business went, I had to stop because I couldn't do it. So I started working on the farm that I had been working on anyway. He was coming with me. I was teaching him how to use the chainsaw, how to use the tractor, how to do all those things. And then all of a sudden that started changing, and he started hating the area. I don't like going over there. I don't like doing this. I don't like, but I didn't know at that time that my husband was doing that.
Yeah.
And even Child Protection said he doesn't like coming to work. I have a housekeeping business and cleaning. I said, he's never cleaned. He has never, ever. My daughter has. He's never had to clean. But in his mind, he cleaned. But I would take them everywhere. We would have fun days, go fishing because we lived on the river. Or just, it was fine. I look back now and it was starting to, when I was looking, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, it was falling apart. I took them camping not long before this happened. And I rang my husband and said, I've got to go back to work. He wants to stay another day. That turned into an absolute disaster. My husband got up there, got bogged in the middle of nowhere. I had to sort it out. It was my fault. But now I look back, it was all, that was part of it. So in his mind, my son says his dad took him to all his sports. His dad took him here. My husband said he drove them to school. We live next to the school. They walked to school. They never, ever got driven. All those things.
He's implanting memories and erasing
memories. And the memories are gone now. Like he thinks his father's done everything. And I'm not going to sit there and say that's wrong because I don't. It's very hard when someone believes something and to tell him he's completely wrong. That's what he believes. I don't know how to change that. And there's no one that can really. All the faults that happened along the way with people not knowing about all this, it's not their fault. It's not. Here's my ex's fault. But there needs to be things in place to stop this happening because children, there's a lot of work. If and when I ever get to see him, it's not going to be roses and lollipops. It's going to be a hard road. And that's a scary thing in itself. You sit there and think, he going to set me up like his dad? Did his dad send him to do that? There's all these things that go through your head because you live in another world. It's a storybook world. No one, to actually say it for the first time, I said to them, don't think I'm crazy. And I still, to this day, have said it many times, but you still think you're crazy. It doesn't sound real, what they do and how they manipulate. And in their mind, children can't vote until they're 18, but they can make all these decisions. And he knows that if he turns against his father, that'll be it. The ex has not even tried with his daughter. She turned on him and that was it. That's the lowest you can go. He heard her that night and he was that quick. He rang the police when she ran away and said, she's gone nuts. I'm really concerned about her. So yeah, like I said, when they picked her up covered in blood and she said she fell over, they knew the situation. They had been come and arrested me. They knew what was going on. Excuse me. So it's just it needs to be taught. And the more that it gets out there, people might understand it because these kids, I don't know what happens with him from here on in. I don't know how you repair the damage that it's done. I really don't know.
Yeah. It's hard, right? It's traumatizing. It's triggering.
It's
and a part of them
24/7 all the time and thinking about him.
And a part of them remembers the good, but they're afraid to believe it because why would a father who supposedly loves you lie to you? Why would he do that?
And they're also worried about the rejection from that parent.
Of course. Yeah, they're traumatized because they've lost you. He's lost you. And what happens if he loses his father? So in his mind, he's afraid of not having anybody. He doesn't have his family. He doesn't have your family. What is his relationship like with his sister?
No, they don't. No, he's turned on everyone. No one.
So he has nobody. So he's alone.
It's her fault.
All
She's
he has
like me. In his mind, he says, she's just like you. You know, you're nothing but a junkie, blah, 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 and she's the same. Yeah. She believes your lies. That's what he sort of says. She believes your lies. She's done it very hard. It's been so horrible to the point where she's like, why doesn't he love me? What have I done? And I said, you're no good to him. You're not at all. Because she's older. She's 21. She's no good to him. She was no good to him the minute she turned 18. He was going to go for the house and for everything else. He had my son there, so he, had to look after him. All these things, and so he'll still send her a message. She hasn't got him blocked. She's a big girl. She cannot answer it if she wants. I wouldn't be able to tell you the last time he sent a message and he says, I'm really sorry, that it's worked out like this, but, I'm so proud of you. He wouldn't even know who she is. He wouldn't know what she's done, who she is, nothing.
How does she feel about those messages?
She gets upset. She's really good. She's quite strong. She just says, well, she'll reply to him, and she's very good. She doesn't just, she'll say, you're not a father. You've done the wrong thing. You did. And he won't answer that. He'll just then disappear. She will answer him properly. Tell him, you can't call yourself a dad. You can't do this. You can't do that. Mum didn't do that. And, that's it. She goes, but that hurts her. That's her dad. That's her dad, So it's not just, especially when they're separated and older. I read a lot about younger ones, and sometimes I think maybe I should have done it when they were younger, but I didn't. I can't turn the clock back.
Right.
It is what it is. But when they're older, it is really hard because they can block you, because the school then does listen to them, because then the authorities listen to them. I mean, this whole thing with the kidnapping, at the last statement was, I don't believe my mum wanted to hurt me, but that was irrelevant. I still had to go through all of those, and my ex was willing to put him on the stand if he had to. I was willing to just let it all go because I didn't want him on the stand. It's just crazy. And the older they are, the harder you're really tied, because I can't do anything. The only advantage now is he saw me the other day at the bus stop. I just wanted to check he was okay. And he actually saw me. Normally I don't allow him to see me at all. He'd seen me once before and he gave me a mouthful. And it was the same thing from 3 years ago. He had nothing extra to add to it.
It's all the same story. It's the same story because it's what their experience about it. It's just words that they've heard from the alienating parent.
It's word for word, just about word for word. And I, in my mind, cannot understand how no one can pick that up. It is word for word. You couldn't, it's like they're reading a script because they've been told over and over.
Yeah.
Like I said, I rang the school, arranged a meeting. Oh, yeah, but we have to have both parents. I said, I cannot be in the room with him. He's not going to talk to me anyway. He's not going to say anything with his dad there. People don't understand. And I feel Australia is so far behind. It seems like everywhere else is getting the gist of it. But over here, and I never thought it was that bad until I've hit this, and I've been studying now, doing that sort of studies. I'm learning how bad it is. And it's got to change. And I don't know how we change it. But in the process, how many more children have to go through this? And parents, it breaks your heart.
Yeah, it totally rips your heart out. But you're right. The children are the victims. The targeted parents are victims too, right? But the kids are victims because they also live in fear. To your point about your son, he's afraid. He's seen what his father is capable of. What is he going to do? Retaliate? He might be bigger than him, but it's a mental mind control as well. It's that coercive control where
he's still his dad.
Yes.
And people don't understand that kids don't turn away from their parent. Over the years, I've got a childcare background. Kids do not turn on a parent very rarely. I've seen some horrendous things kids have gone through, and they still want to see their parent.
Of course.
And people don't get that. It just doesn't happen.
And not only that, but these so-called professionals, they don't believe children lie. What planet do they fall off of? Children lie.
That's right.
All the time.
They're not lying.
Protect themselves.
They're not lying. They're telling what they've been told. So it's not a lie. They're actually not lying. They're telling what they know and what they've had put into them over and over. Kids do not lie. I read, and that's it. They don't lie on purpose. If they're saying something, that needs to be looked into.
But it's the counterintuitiveness of parental alienation that creates the lack of knowledge and proper outcomes for parents like yourself. Because these professionals, they're not versed in what this looks like. They don't understand that children, even at 15, can be manipulated. They don't understand that they're going to say what they're told because they live in fear. And when they say that this person did this to me, and they say the same story over and over, and it's the only thing, They're not asking them, how did that make you feel? They don't know because it didn't happen.
What did she do next? What
Yeah.
happens next? And they can
They don't get
answer
it.
those questions.
No.
They can answer them, no worries. I remember saying to Child Protection, talk to my daughter. She will tell you. We can't. She's over 18.
They don't want to know the truth.
It was easier just to put me in that too hard basket. Once I wasn't the person they thought they were dealing with. Like I said, he is a drug addict. We're working with him with the new parenting situation, is what they said to me. I said, so you know he smokes marijuana and does all that, and you're working with him, you're helping him. Well, that's what Clancy wants.
What about your role? What about where you fit?
You don't have a role. It's like you don't exist.
Yeah.
It's very hard when you go out and they say because we lost everyone. So you talk to people and they say, how many kids you got? You say 2. I don't want any more questions. I normally just say a couple, where are they? One's at school, one's at work, whatever. I don't answer. I don't want to answer it because you get looked at like a horrible person as soon as they say, I don't see my son. They want to know why. So I just don't answer that because I'm not a horrible person.
Yeah.
I'm just not that person and I don't want to answer it. No one's going to help.
And not only do they believe you're a horrible person, but they, like a lot of professionals, think, why would a child say that about you if it wasn't true? That's the first thing that comes to their mind.
And
well, why would they say it if it wasn't true? But again, they're not living through it, so they don't understand it.
But they don't want to listen to what's going on in the next breath. I said, I can understand why people thought I was nuts. I was going crazy. I was not sleeping. I was sleeping in a car or in a van. I had a tumour that I didn't know about. I was working 16 hours a day and I had to deal with him. So I was going crazy. I can tell you I was nuts, but not. Even then, children don't turn away from their parents. And that's the biggest thing that people don't understand. And I read so many parents saying it's been this long, been that long. There's no guide to if and when it'll happen. I worry that he's older and maybe it won't ever happen because in his mind, that's the life that he knows, which takes away all his childhood. It takes everything away.
Yeah.
And no one will look at those things. But all you can do is sit there and hope that one day, I mean, they've had fights. Child Protection put a restraining order on my husband from my son, yet let them live in the same house. The whole thing over here is crazy. I said, he's got a restraining order telling them they're not allowed to fight, and you're allowing him to stay in that house. That's where he wants to be. It's mind-blowing. The things that have happened, it is mind-blowing. And it's very hard because at the end of it, all you want is your child. Whether they're adults or little, you still want your child. But there's no point I've never gone back to justify myself to anyone, say he's wrong. I don't feel the need to. The only person I want to see that it wasn't right is my son. I couldn't care less what anybody, the town that we grew up, I don't care what they think. Yeah. And I left him, that'd be what, it's like she up and left for another family and she did this and she did that. I don't care. Only my son that I want, he's the one that I want to say, hang on a minute, that didn't add up. But I don't know when that'll happen.
So did your daughter try to reach out to him, or did she wash her hands of it?
She did try, but I think he's got her blocked. That's the biggest thing. They all keep blocking. The one thing I did was when the courts were all over, my ex sent me a message saying, I understand how you feel about missing my son, because I miss our daughter just the same. So I sat there and I thought, nah. So I hand wrote a letter of all the things he'd done in the past few years and the manipulation, what he'd done to his daughter. I took a photo and I sent it. I thought nothing can be changed in that letter. He can't edit it. I doubt whether he's going to go and show anybody that letter because he won't want to.
For sure.
So, and he hasn't tried to contact my daughter since. I said, you hurt her and yet you put that back on her as well, So that for me was one of the biggest, and I wrote, do not contact me ever again. And he hasn't. He knows I'll go to the police. I don't want to deal with him. But that being able to tell him what he's done And I wrote how bad he'd manipulated my son. I wrote everything in that letter. It was 18 pages and I cut it down to 2. So that was one of the best things for me to do mentally, because it is no one could fix it. That's all you want. You want somebody to fix it, and they can't. There's really nothing. What do you want? I want my son. That's all you can ever say. Yeah, Christmas, birthdays, 18th birthday, all of those things. And you just have to wait. I put money in his bank, just write love, Mum. He said he didn't get it, so I stopped it for a while. When he said he wasn't getting it, I know he was getting it. So Christmas comes and I put money in. And like I said, I try and ring nearly every day and just leave a message on his voicemail.
Yeah.
If he gets it, I don't know. I wouldn't have a clue. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all I can do, though.
I mean, until he's separated from his father, there won't be hope. There just won't be hope.
The only thing we said is that he is 18 now. So my daughter found her strength at 18, and I'm kind of hoping. But he's doing what his dad was doing at the moment. He's running a bit of a muck. He's drinking and doing things. But I'm just hoping that he knows. I have a recording here, because I, in the end, was recording a lot at home, that says, you know what he's like, Mum. Just leave it. Just be quiet. I know he knows deep down. But the longer it goes, the worry is that it's gone on to the point that there's no not believing what's happened. I think that's, the more you read, that's sort of how it seems to go. You know, and kids are taught that they don't need to talk to a parent if they don't want to. Once they do that, then the chain's broken. And it is. Once they don't sit back and think, hang on a minute, that parent hasn't done anything wrong. No history, no nothing, but we're going to vilify them as well. The chain's broken, and that's what it is. I think that's what really has to change, that people just don't realise kids do not turn on a parent. It takes a lot. I've watched kids sit there waiting when their parents are in jail to go and have that visit. And those parents have done things, and you think they sat there and waited and waited and waited. This doesn't happen, yet no one seems to realise it doesn't happen. They can't get in their head that it doesn't happen. And I don't know how you change that. You just keep making noise, I think.
Yeah, but it's about education. It's about education from the judicial level, with judges, with lawyers, guardian ad litems, child protective services, right? It's education for all of them. But not only that, like specializing and recognizing that just because they're saying it doesn't mean it's true. And whether or not it's regurgitated, again, ask the follow-up questions, right? What was the relationship like prior to this? Why would all of a sudden it turn against you?
They've got the narrative. Yeah. Ask outside the box.
Yeah.
Treat them. Give them a question that they won't be able to answer.
Right.
That's sort of, but they're not taught that. They're just...
No, they're not.
And I don't know what it's like over there. It's obviously the same. Apparently...
It's the same everywhere. It's the same everywhere. Romania is against it. Romania has a law against it, right?
And it doesn't matter.
So there's starting to be some countries that are making change, but also,
I think it needs to start at ground level with child protection. They need to be taught, and they need to be taught to think outside the box, because it's so obvious, most probably for me now, but it's so obvious, and it was back then. Why doesn't he want to talk to me? This is not normal. Oh, he doesn't want, he hates you. He does this. That's fine. Let him say he hates me in a room. Get this together and we can sit in a room. And you know, then they'd say, if and when he ever wants to talk to you, you need to not badmouth the other parent. It's mind-blowing. But my ex had put the work in, ringing authorities, ringing these people prior to this happening. So in their mind, and he's very good at crying, so he could put the tears on, and I don't. I didn't put the tears on, and that was half my problem. I wasn't what they needed me to be. I wasn't sitting there crying, I need my son. I said it like I've said it to you. I want my son back. I didn't have to sit there and cry. It wasn't a performance. It was what was happening. And that's what they don't get. They just, I don't know how you change it, and it needs to be changed. The sooner the better, because these kids are just, it's horrible. It's not right. And it is horrible for the parents, but it's really not about us in the long run. It's about them. That's
So what did you realize it was parental alienation? At what point did you go, oh my gosh, this is what it is? And how did you determine that?
So when this all happened, like I said, I had a agency contact me. I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. I didn't even know where to start to do anything. They contacted me, said they had my ex. They said we'd had contact 7 years ago. I can't remember. We could have. There was a big incident 7 years ago and he was removed and he moved to the paddock over the back. But they started talking. Then they put me onto a counsellor who I'd never seen one before. And they put me to the head of the department because they said, it's nuts. They seemed to know more about my ex than anybody did and how we'd lived. So obviously it had been on the radar. I don't know. So she started talking to me and she was brilliant. I still talk to her now, not in a therapy way, in a just when I need to pick her brain.
Personal.
She started teaching me about parental alienation. She started, well, the first thing was coerced control because I said, there's nothing wrong. I've got no bruises. I'm the one that used to say to him, get stuffed because I didn't want to talk. She goes, so I started learning and she started sending me articles, started reading. Then with child protection, she was with me the whole way. And I said to her, what do I do? She goes, do what you're doing. Tell them the truth. Tell them what you... And we did. So that's where it all started. Then I started listening to podcasts, reading. I did a domestic violence course. I've done 2 of those just to try and understand why people can't understand. Because in my mind with my training, I know that kids don't turn on a parent. So I had to work out what it was all about and how it's happened. And between my daughter talking to me, now knowing things that I wish she never, ever knew. It wasn't for children to know, and the counsellor, and just people like that helped. There was so many systems over here that I didn't even know were available, and they came to me. I didn't even have to look for them. They came to me. It was just amazing, like just amazing. If I had known a lot of that was there prior, I would have, just amazing. It wasn't about money. It was about just trying to work out what had happened. And that first conversation with the counsellor, and she said, I believe you. And that was the biggest thing that someone said. That's where it all started. And I said, good, I'm not nuts then. She said, no, you're not nuts. But and I send her things now. I see it's very hard. And I don't, honestly, our system over here is broken, which I knew it was broken. Now that I've had to go through it, I've realised how broken it is. It is just mind-blowing broken to the point that, he changed his story 5 times or something.
Oh, yeah.
And that mattered nothing. He had all legal aid, which he really should. There was a trial period that he got onto to get it. So not one cost to him. He rocked up at court off his face, and they had to get permission for his mother to talk to me, because he was off his face. There were so many things that led up to it, and my son would have been sitting there through it all because a lot of it was done by video. And I remember saying, one of them, is my son there? I know my son's watching this and he shouldn't be there. But there was nothing. Your hands, it's not innocent until proved guilty. It's guilty until, and even once you're innocent, no one wants to know anything about it. So like ringing child protection after it all, I got off the assault charges, which was one hit. And I'm not saying it was good. I'm not saying that, but it's not the worst thing that any parent could do for a child. That, to me, the worst kind of child abuse is what she said. And I just, in my mind, I know it's not right. But the way I was treated was just, we'll get you help. I said, I don't need help. I need my son. That's what I need. Or I need someone to help me get back to talking to my son. Arrange meetings. They won't do it. When they're older, they say no, it's a no.
Yeah.
And
they'll wash their hands. They'll say, oh, they're teenagers now. They can make those decisions, but they can't make decisions about voting. They can't make decisions about consuming alcohol. They can't make decisions about going to war, but they can make decisions about who they want to reside with as a parent. They should know who
they should be talking to and who they shouldn't. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And I don't know. It all comes back to the same bubble, I think. And it is the bubble of people need to be taught to listen. And I think that's the main thing. They don't listen. Because like we said, there's a narrative. Ask them a question outside that narrative and see what the answer is. They won't be able to answer it. They'll go back to something that they were already taught to say. They cannot answer out of that box. And I don't know how you change it. Just awareness.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And
just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep me posted. You have my contact information.
Yeah.
We'll love to hear things change.
Reached
out to your dad.
Even say I've seen him and he's back, but that'd be great.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.